Hey everyone. So today, as the title suggests, we're teasing some of the components of the HydrosPlus Turbo Plus. Now, I'm going to try to keep this to 10 minutes. I've recorded it like 3 times and not even close, so I'll do my best here. Can't jump off into anything because everything has its nuance and it's going to take too long to talk through. So I'm going to try to keep this very, very high level. What you see before you are a few of the components of the HydrosPlus Turbo Plus that goes with the John Deere 1 Series as well as the second Gen 2025R. Some version of these three components will be on every HydrosPlus Turbo Plus in the subcompact world. So you've got a turbo, which of course you're going to need. You've got an exhaust, I'll call it an adapter. I've been calling this an exhaust riser, but it's something to adapt your existing muffler to add the turbo, and then later on we got to put a new muffler on your tractor. Now, I say that they're going to have these components. Most likely this component and this component will be identical. I'm going to try, in order to keep costs down, I'm going to try to reuse these for every HydrosPlus Turbo Plus, at least on subcompacts. This will definitely have to be custom for every application. Now, let me start with this guy over here. This is important, but I'll talk about it in just a moment. I'll start with the turbo. The turbo is a turbo. They all work basically the same. They have a hot side, a cold side, some bearings, a place for oil to go in, a place for oil to go out, and a wastegate. So nothing special about it. The only thing I've asked the manufacturer to do is to make this consistent with the AR, which is area of radius, on both sides of this for what you see on typical Yanmar 3-cylinder engines. And you'll see a turbo this size on everything from about a 1 liter up to 1.6, 1.8. There's nothing Yanmar about this turbo with the exception of that. And of course, as you jump over to a Kubota or I think it's a Ziki or a Mitsubishi, they're all basically the same in that from a overall volume point of view, they're going to be putting out the same amount of exhaust. That's going to be spinning at a similar speed, and you'll get similar results when it comes to boost. Now, this does have a wastegate on it that starts to open at 5 psi and will fully open somewhere around 15 psi. I've taxed the John Deere 1025 that I have as much as I can, and the most amount of boost I can really get out of it is somewhere around 10 psi. So we're not really worried about overspinning this particular turbo, at least on a I don't remember, it's 1.1 liter, maybe 1.3 liter, I can't remember exactly, engine. Maybe as you get up into a 1.6, which is what you see on the 3025E, you could get closer to the 15 psi boost. So we'll see as that comes along, but this is the turbo I plan to use on whether it be the John Deere subcompacts, Kubota, or other brands. So I'll set this to the side for a moment, and we'll talk about this because the biggest thing I want to talk about is this guy here. Now this is a cast iron, custom designed. And the reason it needed to be custom designed for, well, we had to get the height and other things correct, but you'll notice there is a curvature here, and this muffler goes right up against here. So we stay as far away from the cowling as we can. We're probably a little bit further away from the cowling than the stock muffler. This doesn't get particularly hot, but in case it ever does for anybody, we'll be safe and not melting any plastic. Now, this also has a port. This is a 1/8 NPT port. Future use is most likely going to be pyrometer, but in the meantime, it'll just come with a plug added there. Now, as I mentioned, other applications are going to have different versions of this, maybe much larger. but we had this cast because cast iron is actually one of the best materials for exhaust pieces, since it doesn't expand as much. It's very durable. So it's really the best approach, I think. We could have went with stainless tubing, or aluminized tubing. There's a number of things we could have done, but I think this is going to be the best solution and the most longevity. So set this guy aside. Let's talk about this one. This is the muffler. Now, nothing really special. 304 stainless. You can see it's got a couple of weld seams here. It's got this outlet on the side. But one thing you might have noticed already is it has a honeycomb mesh inside it. So this is not just a muffler. This is a diesel particulate filter, a DPF. And that's going to be one of the secrets, not secrets, because I'm telling everybody, so if it were a secret, it would no longer be a secret, but it will be one of the features of HydrosPlus solutions, no matter which application we're talking about. One of the concerns, especially in the 25 horsepower range, due to Tier 4 requirements, is what happens when you go from a 25 horsepower engine certified for Tier 4 emissions and you move it beyond 25 horsepower. And that's a very gray area. I've read all the chapters that are associated with combustion ignition engines, mobile combustion ignition engines, because generators, which are stationary, marine engines, they're mobile, but they're marine. There's so many words, read them too many times. And I feel confident in the approach that we're going to take, that not only are we going to create an overall final product of an engine that is cleaner burning, more fuel efficient, and more powerful, we will essentially lower the emissions likely to a point that would meet EPA regulations if they were to take this engine and run it back through the certification process. Now, I can't certify this engine. The only place that can certify the engine would be the manufacturer, which in this case is Yanmar, not even John Deere. And something that's really interesting, so I've been in touch with the EPA. I've been in touch directly as Kevin Wynn, as a particular individual. I've also asked questions somewhat anonymously, so that I can get answers and make sure that everything is as I expect based on my understanding of the law. Now, does this mean that the EPA can't come after me for making an engine that was previously classified under 25 horsepower, more than 25 horsepower? I would say no, but if they do, what I've done is, one, made sure that we have a diesel particulate filter. And one feature of this that you can't actually see is that this is treated with the 3 precious metals that you see in catalytic converters and DPFs to reduce carbon monoxide and NOx emissions, NO and NO2. So this has palladium, platinum, and rhodium impregnated into this mesh, and it's to the degree that it meets the Euro 4 standard. Now, the manufacturer I use does not, they could do Tier 4, but they work in Euro standards. Euro 4, I believe, is a little more rigorous than Tier 4, but there's also Euro 5 and Euro 6. I think there's also Tier 5 as a future possibility, but that's not here yet. So again, what we've decided to do at HydrosPlus is to effectively join them. If you can't beat them, you join them. And by joining the EPA and saying, look, there are a bunch of engines out here that use older technology, indirect injection, P-pumps as the fuel injection system, and they're legally dirtier engines, we want to clean them up. And the way we're going to clean them up is we're going to add turbos, which is going to increase fuel efficiency and combustion, complete combustion, which is referred to as lambda, as well as take out diesel particulates and use catalyst to make the air that comes out of this side cleaner. Now, before I go, you probably have at least one question, which is, what about regen? We're not going to have regen. The reason we're not going to have regen is because, look at this thing. I've got it in my hand. It will take you about 2 minutes to take it off, and that's why this V-band clamp is important. So this V-bands are used commonly for exhaust components. They're very well done. They create a great seal, and they're very easy to remove. So by having V-band clamps, we'll have one here and one on the bottom. You can literally take the side cowling off of a 1 series. You can undo this clamp, and this will be held in your hand in a matter of minutes. Now, how do you clean this thing out? Simply, you can use chemicals if you like, but all that's in here is carbon, just like charcoal. And using, I'm going to say high pressure, but don't think pressure washer, just think washer nozzle. Spray this out. You'll be able to spray this and empty the carbon out into whatever you want to empty it into. You could capture it and dry it and, potentially turn it into some kind of art. I don't know. But it's carbon, so you could use it as fertilizer. There's a lot of things you could do with carbon. But that's what we're going to do. We're not going to have a regen cycle. This makes things incredibly simple. It makes it where we don't have to have sensors on either side of it. And not only is it simpler, it's more environmentally friendly. And when I say that, it's because whenever you do a regen, basically what you're doing is heating your particulate filter element up so much that the carbon that is in here turns to ash. And that ash will eventually settle in and clog this DPF up. And that's when you'll either have to have the DPF removed and cleaned, or you'll have to get a new DPF. Now, because we are not doing that, one, by not heating this up, we're actually not creating as many NOx emissions. Every time you run a regen, the heat that's created, so if you don't know, I'm getting too deep into this, I said I wouldn't. If you don't know, NOx is actually created due to incredibly high temperatures, but the nitrogen for NOx comes from the nitrogen in the air. It's not a byproduct of diesel being burned. It is a byproduct or a result of the intense heat and pressure, and then some of that reacting with the nitrogen in the air. So that's another argument we could make. If the EPA ever came knocking, they're not going to come knocking. If they were to come knocking, what kind of case would they have to say, you took an engine and you made it cleaner and more efficient, and we're mad at you? They're not going to be mad. Nobody's mad. This is what they do. And I think if they see this, what we've done with this solution on multiple tractors in the future, they will commend us for making a better environment for everybody. So that is my belief. I think that's I think the reality is they're not going to call at all whether we make it the cleanest engine on earth or that we just make it more powerful but not any dirtier. They're not calling. So that's it for today. I did want to share this. This is one of the things I'm most excited about. I didn't want to take the whole thing off the tractor. I don't have the full, or I do have a full exhaust assembly that is custom and brand new for the 1 series. The same thing will go for the other tractors as well. It has a different outlet that I think some people are going to like. I've got some time on it. I like it better. I don't know if everybody will like it better, but it is basically going to work more like the 2038 or the 2032, where it comes down kind of towards the middle and it shoots out underneath the loader. No more shooting up towards the front of the tractor, and hopefully not as much soot on your tractor. It's probably going to have a little bit of soot residue, but if you get your exhaust or your fuel mixture right, you should have a whole lot less, and a lot more of it's going to be caught within your brand new diesel particulate filter. All right, I said that was the last thing. It's not the last thing. The last thing is, if you're worried that you're going to have one of these, and what if it gets clogged up and you really need to use your tractor? Well, for the pre-orders, I'm going to provide a bypass that looks just like this outer casing, but does not have the diesel particulate filter. Now, it's only for use in emergencies, and I know that none of my customers would ever use it, with the exception of an emergency. But if you do have an emergency where you've got this thing, it's clogged up, nobody knows why, or you have some type of maintenance confusion that you need to rule out the DPF as part of the problem, simply put your bypass on and do your troubleshooting or clean out your DPF. And then, whenever it's ready, you can go put this thing back on. Now, this does also, I think I mentioned it, or I called it a muffler. It does make it sound a lot better in that it's a lot quieter. So that's one of the functions of this as well. But at the end of the day, that's your choice to make. I will tell you, because I've read so much of the EPA's wonderful document, there is exceptions for emergency situations, but there's not a definition of what exactly an emergency is. So I will trust you and your better judgment to determine what constitutes an emergency and whether or not you should use the bypass. But for me, I will be using the DPF at all times, simply because I have extra DPF, so if mine ever got clogged, I'll just throw another one on. So that's it. I have blown way past 10 minutes. Look at that, only maybe 17 minutes. I just can't make short videos, guys. I'm sorry. What can I say? Questions, comments, leave them below, and thanks for watching.